Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Welcome to another compelling program where we kick off with our good friend Bob Mann, professor and chair of the Communications and Media Studies Initiative at Caldwell University. Bob, good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you again, Steve. Last time we were teaching a course together. It was great.
Yeah, let's put that out there. Bob and I co-taught a doctoral program course for educational administrators about leadership and crisis communication. Great initiative. But today we're talking about podcasting. There's a new initiative at Caldwell University that teaches podcasting. Bob, talk about it.
Yeah, Steve, we really thought that podcasting was something that we could bring to the outside community in addition to our undergraduates. And we already had a radio broadcasting course. I had developed a podcasting course. It generated so much interest among the undergrads, we thought that people in the outside community could benefit as well. So it's a 4-course podcast certificate program, and people can complete it in 1 year, and they learn public speaking, radio broadcasting, but of course focus heavily on podcasting.
Bob, it's interesting. You've been doing podcasts for a long time, and actually plug your podcast right now. It's called Hot Media with Bob Mann, and people can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, right?
That is correct, Steve. Hot Media with Bob Mann. We talk about the hottest controversies in mass media and also the hottest new content in mass media. And I have a wide variety of guests. I had a political science professor on the other day talking about politicians in trouble and how they manipulate the media. And this week, I'm interviewing a guy who's producing a totally online situation comedy. So we run the full spectrum of media.
But here's what's interesting, and I've been on your show before, you've been with us, we've taught together, and you've been in the communication media business for more than a couple of years. My question is this: what's the difference between podcasting and doing a broadcast, a radio show, a television show that looks like radio? What's the difference between that and podcasting?
So many people ask that question because they say, well, isn't it just a radio show? It kind of is. And broadcasting is radio communication intended for the general public, AM and FM, whereas podcasting is a digital audio file of a radio style broadcast for a very specific targeted audience. Now, people like Joe Rogan, they're getting millions of listeners, but a lot of people, maybe with a business or some specific interest, they are very narrowcast, and people download it and listen to it whenever they want. You're also your own employer as a podcaster, but you don't have the infrastructure of the radio station to back you up and publicize you. So those are two of the key differences. The main one being broadcast radio over the air, AM and FM, podcasting over the internet for places like Spotify.
But Bob, obviously media broadcasting is evolving every day. It's evolved dramatically in the last 5 to 10 years. But the business part of podcasting, it's always fascinated me. We have our own podcast. People can check them out. But I'm not even saying making money, just basically paying for itself as opposed to doing it as a vanity project. That concerns me. To what degree do you help students understand the business of podcasting?
Well, the title is called Production, Performance, and Purpose. They have to decide what the purpose is of what they're doing. And very often, you can be operating something in tandem with something else you're doing, and it doesn't have to make a profit on its own. But a lot of these platforms for podcasting, they want you to have up to 20,000 unique downloads before they'll even consider advertising, and you can monetize it. It's not that easy to monetize, but it is something you can use for a lot of other purposes. And just like Think Tank is part of your entire media arsenal, Hot Media is something I use at Caldwell University, as well as something I am building toward, hopefully, monetizing. But it's a challenge. There's over 2 million podcasts out there. Yeah.
5 years ago, how many do you think there were? Meaning, how much expansion has there been? To what degree has it exploded?
It's exploded over the past 5 years. That's why I actually used my sabbatical to learn everything about it. I felt I had to make a transition from broadcasting over to podcasting for my outside career, and it really has gone up tremendously. Supposedly, overall, there are 48 million episodes out there. A lot of these, though, are not active podcasts. They're called pod faders. They start, they find out it's too much work, they drift away. You have to know why you want to do it.
You know, I'm curious about this, but I'm and again, to disclose, Bob and I have had conversations about media and what makes for a great interview, what makes for great broadcasting. There are a lot of folks who think, this goes all the way back, I'm going to date myself, to Johnny Carson. People say, well, that looks really easy. What he does is easy. And I've often argued that people who are interviewers, people who broadcast and engage people, when it looks easy, that's when you know that person's really good. And it's not that easy, because I've seen, without getting on a soapbox, really big name people convinced they could do a podcast, they can do, I've seen housewives of whatever place they're from, I'm gonna do a podcast. And they think it's all about them as opposed to something different. What am I getting wrong here, Bob?
You are 100% spot on, Steve. I once had a friend insult me so much, almost ended the friendship. Oh, well, anybody can do a talk show. Really? It's not just a list of Q&As. It is not just having a conversation, with someone else among a couple of people, because it has to be a conversation that's important and interesting to other people. And people just don't get that. Some people go into it and you would think they're doing a job interview. So where'd you go to high school? What's your age?
They're going through their list.
Yeah, they're just going through the list like they're interviewing them instead of trying to find out what they're talking about, something that only that one person has the authority to deliver and answer on, some story that you've researched. You don't want to be overcooked, but at the same, keep your curiosity fresh. But at the same time, they go into it totally blind. And it's a disaster. It's actually a very hard job. And everybody says it's just talking.
And by the way, everything Bob Mann just said goes for a really good podcast. If it's just for you because you're interested, why do it? Right. It's got to be for others and for yourself and bring value. That's Bob Mann, professor and chair of communication and media studies at Caldwell University. They, in fact, are one of the higher ed partners that we have. And I'm proud to have taught and continue to be teaching at Caldwell University. Hey, Bob, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Steve.
You got it. I'm Steve Adubato. Stay with us. We'll be right back.